It's time to make a maxi skirt. So last week I made a simple summer dress and ended up styling it in the video with sweaters because it's still 40 degrees in New Jersey. But I'm gonna keep the spring, summertime vibes going because I know it's right around the corner. And today I just wanna make a simple maxi skirt and that's it. So let's get to it. Okay, so I've done some measurements, and for this maxi skirt, I'm gonna do a top piece that's gonna be 30 by 16.5 inches. I'm gonna need 2 of those. My bottom piece is gonna be longer and 1.5 times. So we're gonna do 45 inches by 26 inches. Gonna need 2 of those. I wanna do a drawstring. So it's gonna be a very long piece of fabric. That's gonna be 80 by 2 inches. I'm just gonna need 1 of those. And I need pocket pieces. So for this, I'm just going to use a template from a pattern I already have, times 4. Let's get to cutting. Oh, and before we get to cutting, I'm also using an elastic that's 1 inch, so it's gonna be on the smaller side. And I just measured it around my waist to be comfortable, more stretchy, because I notice when I do elastic looser, it's actually more uncomfortable, which you wouldn't think so, but so down here we'll just do 1 inch elastic. Now we can get to cutting. Okay, we have the bottom of the skirt, top of the skirt, drawstring, pockets, elastic, and this little rectangle up here is all I have left of this fabric. Ooh. So I hope I did my calculations correctly. And I ended up needing to do 1 more strip of this fabric just to make it wide enough, but it's the bottom ruffle, so once I put it together, you won't even see the seam, especially with the striped fabric. And I made sure the stripes are facing down. They won't be across, so they'll be like this. So let's get to sewing. So my first step was to finish the edges of all 4 pocket pieces. I decided to finish all the edges of the fabric before sewing it together, just to use my overlocker all at once, and then I could switch to my sewing machine, and it made it a little more seamless. I also was able to use the finished edge of the fabric, so I didn't have to use my overlocker for a lot of the pieces because I was able to just go to the very edge of my fabric when cutting my pattern pieces. Okay, this is a tight one. I am pinning it about 1 inch from the bottom because I needed space at the top because this is gonna curl down to go around the elastic. And I measured 6 inches down, which was, this part would be further down, but I wanna leave room here to add that second ruffle. So these pockets might be a little high, but it's okay. And I'm having a hard time figuring out wrong side versus right side. And I think this is one of the fabrics kind of doesn't have a right or a wrong side. It's really beautiful fabric and it's textured and it has this like piping through it. It's really beautiful to work with. So I'm getting excited about this skirt. So I'm going to sew the pockets on both pieces of the top skirt, and then I'm going to sew those top skirt pieces together. Okay, so now I have to add buttonholes to let the drawstring out. So I'm measuring about 15.5 is the midway point. So I'm going to make my buttonholes on 15 and 16 inches. I folded over the waistband so I know what it's going to look like. So on the other side, I can figure out where the middle is and mark the 15 and the 16. Okay, so I've marked approximately where I want my buttonholes to be. And I found a button that's a little bigger than 1/2 inch because my string is going to be around 1/2 inch. So I've placed that in my buttonhole foot. And I'm going to make my 2 buttonholes, making sure to unfold this fabric because I don't want to go through the other side. Okay, so I messed up. Let me show you. This fabric is bumpy. So using the buttonhole foot was very challenging. It also took me forever to take out the buttonhole. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move it over slightly on a flatter piece of the fabric. So they're going to be a little further apart, but since it's going to be gathered, it should be fine. I just want it to be flat so it doesn't get caught up. And I don't want a bigger button because if I have a bigger button, it's going to make an even bigger buttonhole. So I need to find a button that's 1/2 inch, and then it will give me the buttonhole that I want. So let's try this again, round 2.
Yeah.
Okay, not the prettiest buttonholes I've ever done, but they're there. I'm gonna move on to the waistband. So for this, I'm just gonna fold over 1/2 inch, fold over 1.5 inches, and then stitch along, leaving a little opening so I can insert the elastic. So before I folded over the waistband, I grabbed my seam ripper and made a little hole to create the hole in the buttonhole. And then I used my scissors just so I had a little more control, and I made sure I didn't slice through the stitches that I had made for the buttonhole, since I had already took out other buttonholes and I didn't want to have to do it a second time. To make things a little easier, I brought my skirt over to the iron and I ironed that 1/2 inch over one time and then folded it over again 1.5 inches, flattening out the side seams to make sure they wouldn't add bulk to the side. And then I grabbed my little ruler just to make sure that the correct measurements went all around the skirt.
No.
To thread my elastic through, I added my bobbin and inserted it into the channel that I just made, pulling it, being careful to leave the end out and not feeding that all the way through. And also double checking that the elastic isn't getting twisted as I'm pulling it through. Once the elastic is fed all the way through, I put the two ends together, go to my sewing machine, and just make some zigzag stitches to hold it in place. Then I even it out among the waistband and stitch the opening closed. Okay, here it is. So next up, I am going to stitch together the bottom ruffle, since I have it in 3 separate panels right now. So I'm going to stitch it together and then add 2 rows of gathering stitches to the top.
Yeah.
I used those gathering stitches to pull together the bottom tier, pinned it to the top piece of the skirt, right sides together, and then stitch it together, trying to keep the ruffles as even as possible. Once the bottom tier was sewn on, I went through and picked out any of the gathering stitches that were peeking through and weren't enclosed in the seam allowance. To hem the skirt, I just folded over the finished edge once and then twice, and I just did this at my sewing machine as I was going around. And it came out pretty even since I had the overlocked stitches to follow. And the last step was the drawstring. I ironed a piece of 2-inch fabric in half, opened it up, then matched the long edges to the center, and then folded those in half to make the tie. And now I'm just stitching just on the 2 short edges and 1 stitch along the longer edges to enclose it. And after this, once I feed it through the skirt, my skirt will be done. Here's a skirt. I'm on a real white and blue kick, and I think it's going to continue because I have a lot more white and blue fabric. But yeah, I love how the skirt came out. I love the length. I wanted it maxi, made it maxi. I like the little ties. The elastic band, I made it inch elastic, and it was perfect. Yeah, and I can see myself wearing this a lot this summer with tank tops and maybe at the beach, and you know, just it's really easy, just throw it on. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.